obviously saw the injuries really hold them back in 2024. They were Super Bowl favorites as they were really, cranking out wins, even with all the injuries that were happening. They didn't seem like they could be stopped. Ran into the playoffs. Obviously, it just did not happen. Too much had happened. Too many injuries to key players really held them back. But that does not mean that 2025 isn't going to be their year. And I have the moves that they need to make to ensure a Super Bowl run is in their future in 2025. Be sure to watch this. You're going to love these moves, Lions fans. I'm telling you, this is how you get it done. Now, first off, we have to address the elephant in the room. You lose Ben Johnson, you lose Aaron Glenn. In comes John Morton, who's only been an OC once, and he was with the Jets in 2017. Obviously, the talent on that offense wasn't that great, and he didn't perform well. How does he fill Johnson's shoes as the offensive coordinator? I think, he's been in a lot of places. He was recently with the Denver Broncos as their passing game coordinator. We saw how well that worked for Bo Nix. Bo Nix obviously had a great year. I was not a big Bo Nix believer. I was proven wrong, absolutely 110%. Bo Nix dominated. I think some of that may have to do with John Morton, which is why they gave him a chance. He's an ex-player. Dan Campbell loves his ex-football players. I think they have 12 of them on the roster right now, and that includes Kelvin Shepard and how he replaces Aaron Glenn. Now, he's only been a coach for 4 years, but all of it was with Glenn in Glenn's scheme. Is he keeping the same scheme? Does he have some ideas to change some of that? He was a linebackers coach before becoming the defensive coordinator under Dan Campbell. These two guys realistically are going to kind of shape what the Detroit Lions look like in 2025. And I think their shoes and sort of the pressure on them is immense, because you've already seen that the talent is there. You saw how good Ben Johnson was. You saw how good Aaron Glenn was. This defense and offense, even the defense with all the injuries they had, was very, very good. The offense, we've seen, Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta and Jameson Williams. All these guys have absolutely dominated inside of Ben Johnson's scheme. He is obviously stayed in the division. He's with the Chicago Bears. Things have to change a little bit inside of this scheme, and I'm interested to see how John Morton does that with what they have and what they're going to get. Same thing with Kelvin Shepard. I think that this is going to be a big, big season, and these two guys are critical. How good they do their job, Lions fans, is critical to you getting back into the driver's seat in the NFC North, getting back to the driver's seat in the NFC, especially when you look at some of the complete teams that are in the NFC with the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, with the Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and everything they have going on there. You are now inside of what looks to be a very dominant top three teams inside the NFC as that third team, which is good, but it's not great for the aspirations that you have. Which brings us to the things that you guys need to do to help John Morton and Kelvin Shepard really keep this team where it needs to be with the players that you have and you need to go get. So first off, we need to address the fact that Zeitler is out. He's 35 years old. He's a free agent. You have about $50 million in cap space to play with. Do you re-sign a 35-year-old guard because you know what you're getting with him, or do you kind of want to look for younger options that have performed well, maybe not as cheap, but they're going to be around for a little while longer, right? Kind of plug those guys in. I have a few free agent names to look for, and where a couple of these guys really may be the best option, just because you've seen them play in the NFL, they can play in the NFL, what they're good at. Or we really want to go get them. The guys like Will Freeze, obviously with the Colts, had some injuries. Younger guy, still very, very competitive, very, very good. I think he's one of the top guards in this free agent market that I'd be interested in going in. Just a very dominant guy, team first kind of guy. Trey Smith, another one. Obviously, the Chiefs have some cap issues there. Are they going to be able to retain a young guard like Trey Smith? It remains to be seen. He's available right now. Tevin Jenkins from the Bears. When he's out there on Sundays, he's great. Injury history. Again, you have a lot of these questions. I don't know if those are some things you can overlook from a free agent standpoint. Obviously, you probably have people you could throw a lot of that $50,000 or $50 million at in free agency. Do you really want to waste it on guys like, Will Freeze, Trey Smith, Tevin Jenkins that may take you out of the running for more key positions and more focused positions that you could go get to really shore up some of the other things on this team to help you catch up and be competitive with what the Commanders and the Eagles are going to go do? I think you look to the draft. I think the draft is the best place to address the guard position. Obviously, where you're drafting at. If Gray Zabel is there, the guy has played all 5 offensive line positions. A lot of people think due to his arm length, he's probably going to shift inside, day 1 starter at center or guard. I go get Gray Zabel if he's there on the board. If he's on the board, it's easy choice. Go get Gray Zabel. He floats right in at guard. You already have Christian Mahogany there to fill in the spot. He performed decently in his limited time. Obviously, the mononucleosis diagnosis early on kind of stunted his growth in year 1 as a rookie, but I think that he can actually play very, very well. I don't think you really need to address that, but you still have 1 guard spot to fill. I think Gray Zabel's that guy. I think he's a do-it-all kind of guy. He's a guy that you can really move around the offensive line as you need to, and he's just a ferocious blocker. If you're not looking to get an offensive lineman in the first round, I understand the offensive line classes had a lot of, scrutiny put towards it for this draft, but I still think Gray Zabel's a great pick here. Other options a little later in some of these rounds is Tyler Booker, and not outstanding, but you know what you're going to get, right? He's been a solid guy, not great, good but not great kind of guard. Tate Ratledge out of Georgia is another one. Some injury short in his 2024, but he was good. I mean, honestly, to me, if you don't want to get Gray Zabel in the first round, your last choice realistically is Willie Lampkin. But the problem with Willie Lampkin is he relies more on technique and being very competitive and sort of having a fiery attitude, but he's undersized. He's only 5'11", 5'10", only about 290. It's really small for an interior offensive lineman. Do you really get everything out of that? Now, he did play very well at North Carolina, but the level of competition that you're kind of looking there for North Carolina, you have to take into consideration. I think Gray Zabel is the best option you have right now from a guard standpoint that you can really go get, unless you're taking a late round, day 3 flyer on somebody that you're not quite sure of, some of an unknown, which is a possibility. We've seen tons of good offensive linemen come from later rounds. They perform a lot better, just have a chip on their shoulder, which, I mean, let's be fair. If you want a mean chip on the shoulder kind of guy, you want it in the trenches. Those guys are absolutely ferocious. They're monsters. But I still think first round draft pick, you go get Gray Zabel. The next thing we have to look at here is, although Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams both went for 1,000 yards, I still feel like you need one more wide receiver. You need that one extra guy. Now, I understand that, there were some free agents brought in, some guys that you didn't give a lot of money to that you were hoping would kind of, take off. They really didn't, but I think you need to get a guy who's kind of outside of the mold of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams. They're both about 6 foot, 6'1". They're smaller guys, really route technicians. You need a physical, big-bodied wide receiver who can win with power and strength and sort of, do the sort of things you want to do real good, solid hands, reliable guy, really can get in there and do those dirty sort of things you need a wide receiver to do. And I think your preferred selection is Jaden Higgins. Now, I don't think he's going to be there for you to draft in the second round. I think he's going to be off the board before you get a draft in the second round. You could trade up and go get him if he's really the target you want, but I don't think you have to necessarily go get Jaden Higgins to fill that, sort of prototypical big body, large catch radius, back shoulder, work on slants, find soft spots in zones, use power, use physicality to win and get position on corners, in those sorts of things, that red zone threat kind of guy. I think that there are other options later in the draft. I think you have like a Trey Harris. He's PFF 96 right now. He has a lot of those same traits. He's 6'3", he's 210, has a lot of those 50-50 ball catches he can do, very competitive and contested catches, very solid hands, very good route runner, 1,000-yard guy, very physical guy. I like Trey Harris a lot. I think he's a very, very good wide receiver, especially if he goes somewhere in that 96 round or area. Obviously, you're trying to figure that out a little bit. Do you draft him earlier because you're high on him? Do you kind of try to find him in that sweet spot? I don't know. My other one that I'm very solid on, I just watched a ton of tape on this guy. I think that, he doesn't have that burst that you like to see, but his start-stop ability is great. He gets a lot of separation on his start-stop, allowing him to get some catches, coming back to the ball, coming back towards the line of scrimmage. Also, his change of direction, these sort of short area, quick twitch motions. Pat Bryant is very, very good at doing those sorts of things. Very good back shoulder throws. He's a long strider, speed guy. So, the longer he gets to run, the less he has to change, sort of his direction. You just let him go out there and run. He's a big body guy. He's 220. He's like 6'5", massive catch radius. Really, really was the focal point of the Illinois offense. And if you watch some tape on him, there's a video out right now that's 33 minutes of all of the highlights that Pat Bryant did, and you'll just see him. He's a zone eater. The guy in zone coverage finds a soft spot in the zones. He will get open almost like it's second nature to him. In man coverage, you kind of see that he's got to win with his body a little bit. He doesn't get that great separation. But I think him, just like Jaden Higgins, compares, and possibly Trey Harris, really compared to like a Michael Pittman. I think Trey Harris has a little more separation capability, hinting why that, he's kind of a little higher than Pat Bryant, a little lower than Jaden Higgins. But if it was me, I would want Trey Harris. I'd want Jaden Higgins. But if I have to settle for a Pat Bryant, I'm okay with that. I think Pat Bryant, he showed his ability to line up sort of all over the place. He lined up as a fullback in the backfield. They put him in motion. They handed him the ball on jet sweeps. He's very good at finding the lanes, finding soft spots in zone. That's the guy I'm looking for, who's kind of that outlier, completely different wide receiver from Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. I think that's the guy you go get. You go get yourself a Pat Bryant from Illinois. You're going to get him sometime in day 3, probably here. He's going to be sometime in day 3 guy. I like Pat Bryant for the Detroit Lions because he gives them something that they don't have right now. They don't have that guy who can do what Pat Bryant can do. He's a 50-50 ball guy, outside guy, wins breaking in, wins breaking out, wins coming back, because he does have that ability to just drop a gear and get lateral motion in his routes whenever he's supposed to. Very physical guy, breaks tackles. It's the kind of guy you need to help solidify and round out this offense that realistically, outside of the top 2 guys you got, it drops off after that, the wide receiver position significantly. You just don't have that solid number 3 guy. And I think, that's the guy you go get. Free agency really doesn't have anybody like that. I think that the minute that T. Higgins was franchise tagged, that it just fell off a cliff right after that. I know Chris Godwin's there, and I like Chris Godwin, but I don't think he's much different than what you have in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. That's why I think like a Pat Bryant, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, those are the targets. Pat Bryant, I think, is the perfect situation because you don't really have to do anything to go get him. I think he's going to be available when you're ready to pick him, and that's what's going to matter. And he's the best bang for the buck at the position that you'll have possibly in round 3, maybe round 4 or 5, depending on how the board falls, right? Now, finally, we've looked at the offense. We've addressed those 2 key things, right? Number 1, you got to get yourself a guard. You got to solidify the guard position with Zeitler being 35, free agent. Mahogany's coming back. You need to get 1 extra guard, round out that solid offensive line, which was one of the best in football, bar none. We added your next wide receiver. You get that guy who's a big body guy, does something different than what you get from Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. You'll get that guy. Rounds out the offense, give Jared Goff an additional target, someone who's able to win those contested catches and really catch in traffic and be that solid guy. Now we have to look at the defensive side of the ball. We have to help Kelvin Shepherd. We have to get the things that Kelvin Shepherd needs to help ensure that this team is at the top of its game. Now, we didn't use a lot of free agent money, or if any free agent money, on the offensive side of the ball. I'm okay with that. I think that's okay. I think you're good there. It's time to use some, in my mind, on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I think, you could look at some cornerbacks if you wanted to. The cornerback market's good. You have some guys there you could re-sign, bring some guys back if they want to come back, give them some money. But the linebacker position is something I want to focus on here. And I think that possibly you go out and get Dre Greenlaw. I think Dre Greenlaw coming in as a free agent from the 49ers, he plugs right in. He's a game changer at linebacker. You really get that front 7 solidified. And I think the front 7 is, as we saw with the Eagles, is very important, especially the defensive line and the linebackers being able to do the things you need them to do to get some of that done. Now, if you use some of that free agent money on the defensive backfield, does Dre Greenlaw, are you able to offer him enough money per year to come to Detroit and be a Detroit Lion? That's where it gets a little questionable, right? Now, I think that based on the fact that I said, hey, you're going to get Grace Abel in the 1st round, you probably get Pat Bryant in the 4th or 5th round. If Dre Greenlaw doesn't work out, I think you have to go get Carson, I'm going to butcher this name, Schwessinger out of UCLA. He's PFF rank 54. Guy's a dominant linebacker, plays with his hair on fire, but he's technical, he's in control, and he's a solid linebacker. I think that he's probably your best target at the linebacker position for what you need. Graded very highly in PFF. Very, very, very solid prospect. I think that him with your 2nd round pick, That's the kind of guy you need to go get. I believe he's going to be there. I think that even if you have to trade up a little bit to go get him, mortgage some 2026 draft capital, go get Carson Schwessinger if you cannot get Dre Greenlaw. These are the two guys I think for the linebacker position you have to focus on. And hell, I don't know if I would just go get both of them, in all honesty. If you could get Dre Greenlaw and draft Carson Schwessinger, I think that's the perfect situation. Getting one of them is a necessary thing to do. So now we get the linebacker position solidified. You got that done. What's the next thing we have to do? You got to get a running mate for Aiden Hutchinson. I think you need somebody on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson who's going to really do things for you. I think Josh Sweat is going to end up testing free agency. I think you could bring him in. Malcolm Kuntz from Oakland, I think that he is going to be on a very, very palatable contract to come in and be a guy who can dominate. Now, he did have an injury to his knee. I think that is a kind of a bummer, and some of those things, and it kind of ruined some of the momentum he had. But when healthy, Kuntz is a dominant player. Now, I know you don't want to bring in injury-prone people for a team that literally probably goes to the Super Bowl if they don't have all the injuries they have. However, I don't think you can take yourself out of the running for a player that you could probably get a little cheaper than, say, a Josh Sweat, just because he's coming off of an injury and people are a little hesitant to give him major money because they're not sure he's going to come back. I think you could still take that risk as the Detroit Lions. I think you could bring him in and see what he does and give him a lot of incentives on the back end to make this deal palatable for him based on playing time and availability, right? Protect yourself, give him the incentives that he needs to get there, and you do that. If neither of these guys really you're liking, it's not that big of a deal. This is a defensive draft, people. Pick a round. Pick a round, and you can go get any edge defender you want. There's 10 sack guys up and down this board. I think Dan Campbell is going to find the right guy. I think a lot of the guys we listed, the physicality side aspect of that, the mentality that Dan Campbell looks for in players is there. And everybody's. I think Gray Zabel fits that mentality. I think Pat Bryant fits that mentality. I think Dre Greenlaw and Carson Schwessinger fit that mentality. I think Josh Sweat, Malcolm Kuntz, and just about you can pick a guy somewhere on the edge inside this draft that's going to fit that mentality. But those are the things you have to do to get back to where you want to be at. And I believe that these are the moves that get the Detroit Lions into the Super Bowl in 2025. Let me know in the comments what you like, what you didn't like. I'll be here for all the smoke. But hey, the Lions are going to be roaring themselves into the playoffs come 2025, regardless.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.